Hey, everybody. It is Boys and Hodgson here, Mankind Project USA. Thank you. Welcome. I'm seeing 191 people now with us live in the Zoom room. That is amazing. Thank you all for being here. And the live stream is now up and on running. Yep, there we go. Now running on the live streaming channel on the mankindproject.org website. And I hear you, Olivier. Let me see if I can find some music to put on here. And if you are a panelist, I'm going to be chatting you up in the chat window behind the scenes here. Please stay tuned. James McCleary, if you are out there in the webinar and I'm just not seeing you, please raise your hand in the Zoom webinar so that I can see you. Jim Mitchell, welcome. There you go. We're just showing the logo out there right now, the 35th anniversary. Yeah, I hear you, San Diego. Baroque music with the keyboard and computer sounds. That's the way we roll these days. We will be getting started in just a couple of moments.
When is George going to speak?
Still looking for James McCleary. If you are in the room with us in the webinar, please raise your hand. I'm just going to read some names here. This is incredible. Welcome to everybody. Jim Mitchell, welcome. Hans Lockman, Agostino, Alexandre, Andrew Heller, welcome. Captain Joytitude, good to see you. Carl Greaser, good to see you. I'm going to move you over to the panel, Carl. Bruno, Jean-Michel, Howie, welcome. Mark Snyder's welcome. Stan Sherman, brilliant. Hey, everybody, welcome. It's Boysen Hodgson, Communications and Marketing Director, Mankind Project USA. Thank you for being here. We still have a whole lot of folks rolling into the room. I'm going to slow way down. 257 people with us live in the webinar. Right now, I'm just showing the 35th anniversary screen. We have most of our folks. And Michael, why don't we, I think we have our panelists in the room. All right. We have one live mic here. I'm going to mute you, Kirby. And Michael, why don't you go ahead and do our logistics? Welcome, Michael Russer, and thank you so much for all of your technical assistance in the background of today's and yesterday's presentations.
You're so welcome, brother. Thank you. Well, welcome back, and thank you for joining us for day 2 of Mankind Project's online 35th anniversary celebration. I'm Michael Russer, Compassionate Cougar, and I'll be helping out with the logistics behind the scenes. and I want to bring your attention to a number of details. You may be wondering why I'm pausing every few words. The reason is we have real-time interpreters working now for those of you whose first language is not English. If you need translation in French, Spanish, German, or Dutch, please go to the 35th anniversary live schedule page and see the translation section in the help portion of the page. Now, some logistics. This may look different than the Zoom meetings you're used to. In a Zoom webinar, only a panel of speakers will appear on the screen. All other participants are hidden and muted. As a participant, you can use the Q&A function or the chat feature to ask questions and participate. If you're having technical trouble with audio, please go to the live schedule page for live support. We will include short breaks between some presentations. The full presentation is being live streamed directly to a page on the mankindproject.org website and will be available after the event. Lastly, we may experience some technical challenges. We ask for your patience and understanding in the event that should happen. Again, thank you for being here and welcome. And now, welcome the U.S. Region Host Chairs, Paul Samuelson, Chair, Ed Gurewitz, Immediate Past Chair, and Brian Harold, Chair-elect.
Thanks, Michael, very, very much. Are we on? Are we going?
You're live, guys. Go for it.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks. Hi, Paul Samuelson, Papa Fox, and welcome to what was going to be warm and sunny and face-to-face in Tucson, Arizona. However, for all kinds of reasons that you're clearly aware of, we didn't get there. But we're so glad, and I'm so glad, that we could figure out a way with the help, the wisdom, and the strength from so many men all over the world in different regions to make this possible. So thank you. I want to introduce to you the two cohorts I have in my work as chair, and that would be Brian Harold, who is the chair-elect, and the other is Ed Gurewitz, who's the immediate past chair. He's also the secretary for the organization. Brian.
Am I on?
Yes, you're.
Okay, cool. All right, so thank you, Paul. So I'm Brian Harold, fabulous mountain lion, land of my grandfathers, 10-10-10. Currently in the Heartland area of MKP USA. On behalf of the host region, welcome to this international gathering of brothers. My mission, as a man among men, I am an authentic leader, serving in passion and mission. I boldly manifest successful partnerships to create a better world. And in my life, I'm pretty risk adverse. I have a highly developed risk manager. Yes, I was that last person out on the carpet. Yet, in my entire professional career, I have been in disruptive technologies, which could be described as evolutionary revolution. which you might describe where the project is today. Indeed, where the world finds itself today. Staying socially connected while physically distant during this worldwide crisis is causing us to evolve, embracing technology, online trainings, online connection circles, and much more. And will be a much stronger organization because of it. This celebration, how awesome, worldwide, translated in real time in 5 languages, truly bringing together the world brotherhood and honoring our founders and 35 years of rich history. Looking forward to the next 35 years, supporting men, with all men, especially the young warriors, becoming the grandfathers supporting the next generation. Next, I would like to have Ed Gurwitz, immediate past chair of MKP USA, say a few words. Ed.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. I want to add my welcome to those of Paul and Brian. Willkommen, bienvenue, benvenuto, welcome, baruchim habayim, v'yemu kewa, malanoi, velina, and I apologize if I mispronounced or butchered the pronunciation on any of those. Many people have speculated that following the COVID-19 emergency, things would never be the same. For me, that applies to MKP in a very particular way. For 35 years, we've largely depended on meeting in person. And we all continue to do that. We will continue to do that. But the first months of the COVID emergency have shown us the possibility that is there in meeting online. If you had asked me in January about online iGroups and trainings, I'd have been skeptical. I felt there was no substitute for physical presence and physical contact. Necessity, and there's a saying in English that necessity is the mother of invention. And that mother has proved me wrong. Since my election as chair of MKP USA several years ago, the divides in MKP have bothered me. Whether those divides were among men with differing cultures and characteristics, between men who participated a lot and men who didn't, or among the International Brotherhood of Regions. Increasingly, and particularly on yesterday's call, I've felt those divides melting away, and a sense of true brotherhood where the only barriers are logistics, time differences, etc. I'm hoping that the dissolving of barriers will extend beyond MKP to the rest of the world. The positive impact on the planet of people being unable to travel makes apparent the degree to which we, as humans, have been leaving harm in our wake. This forced training in connecting online and in shopping less and less frequently is a learning that I hope will not go away. Today is about celebrating our founders and others who have made major contributions to MKP over the past 35 years. But let's not forget to also celebrate the part that each of us have played in this movement toward healthy masculinity and toward undoing those acts of psychic self-mutilation that kill off parts of ourselves, as Boysen said yesterday. As we say in the context presentation, with our past healed and our missions of service in focus, we have accepted our individual and shared responsibility for the future of humanity. Thus, we create a world where we act on that responsibility by initiating and supporting men on a path of emotional maturity, spiritual awareness, and deepening community. So welcome everyone, and let's have today be the start of the next 35 years and more as we heal ourselves, heal the planet, and heal humanity. Now here's Paul Samuelson, the chair of MKP USA.
Thanks, Ed, and thanks, Brian, and thanks for the work that you do and the work we do together to make a difference. I just want to say a couple more things about Tucson. While I know that some of us are sad that we weren't being there and couldn't be there, and I also know that what we really gained from that was what we have here yesterday and today, which is beautiful. What we have is many, many men who could not make it to Tucson, and they could make it here. So there is a silver lining. There is a blessing in whatever occurs and however it occurs. I want you to know how much you matter, how much it feels great to me and to all of us around the world to be locking arms and working together in this moment we're in. This is a difficult time for many, many people. All of us are feeling a collage of different emotions. What I know for sure is what we get here and what we have from what we've learned, the weekend that we had that brought us forward into new places, into our own self. The groups, the circles we're in, the groups we're in, and the way we move forward is a witness to the world. We are giving people through the work we've done and with ourselves, in our communities, in our neighborhoods, and in ourselves, is really making a difference. This work really, really matters. So thank you for the witnesses that you are right now, the strength that we give, the courage that we have. Since the last month, there's been a lot of work to be done. I've not once been in a circle, which for me, most of the times looks just like this, where I didn't feel safe and comfortable and empowered and inspired and loved and full of hope and opportunity from that experience. That's what we give. That's what we offer to each other and to the world. I'd like to close with a poem. It's a William Stafford poem, The Way It Is. There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you are pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it is hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen. People get hurt or die, and you suffer and get old. Nothing you do can stop time unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread. That thread is what we share. That thread is what we're giving away each day. So wonderful to be with all the different regions of MKP around the world. Again, thank you for that. I'm now going to introduce Curtis Mitchell, who's going to do the invocation and the blessing. Curtis, it's all yours.
Greetings. My name is Curtis Mitchell, Standing Coyote. I wish to let you know that I will be repeating the invocation that I used yesterday. It will put those of you who were not here on the same footing as those who were. I wish to let you know that this invocation will be in two parts, an anecdote and then the invocation proper, based on the content of the anecdote. I am taking this story from Joseph Campbell's masterpiece, Primitive Mythology. If any of you are curious about the roots of human spirituality, the root embedded in the once global practices of shamanism, I suggest you read it. It may serve to explain to you why we as an organization are in the midst of creating a new mythology for men. And so, almost 100 years ago, from 1921 to 1924, the great explorer Rasmussen, as a member of the 5th Danish Thule expedition, made a trip across the far northern reaches of North America, from Greenland to Western Alaska. He, Rasmussen, made it a point to interview the people he came across living in these, the harshest of lands. And he focused particularly on the shamans of the various tribes he encountered. One such shaman was an Eskimo man named Igjugarjuk. His opinion was that the only true wisdom lives far from mankind, out in the great loneliness, and it can be reached only through suffering. Privation and suffering alone can open the mind of a man to all that is hidden from others. But the psychic and spiritual balance to suffering is rapture. Another such shaman was a man named Najagnek, also of the Eskimo people. He spoke with Rasmussen about a voice that could sometimes be heard in the great loneliness. Najagnek named this voice Sila and described it as the upholder and the soul of the universe. He said Sila is so mighty that its speech to humans normally cannot be heard and comes not through ordinary words, but through storms, snowfall, rain showers, the tempests of the sea, through all the forces that people fear, or through sunshine, calm seas, or small, innocent, playing children who understand nothing. When times are good, Sila has nothing to say to the people. It has disappeared into its infinite nothingness and remains away as long as people do not abuse life, but have respect for their daily food. No one has ever seen Sila. Its place of sojourn is so mysterious that it is with us and infinitely far away at the same time. In the end, however, this voice may speak to a person. It is never seen. Its voice alone is heard. He said, all we know is that it has a gentle voice, like a woman, a voice so fine and gentle that even children cannot become afraid. When Rasmussen asked Najagnek what the voice said, he replied, what it says is, Sila, Ersinar Siniv Deluge. Be not afraid of the universe. Take courage. And so this is our invocation. Say it with me. Be not afraid of the universe. Take courage. Be not afraid of the universe. Take courage. Be not afraid of the universe. Take courage. Aho. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. I remembered what you said yesterday and it landed in my body again today. I really appreciate it. Greetings to all of you from sunny Tucson, Arizona. Many of you were scheduled to be here with me this weekend, celebrating the 35th anniversary of the founding of this organization. But a tiny microbe had another plan for me, for you, and for the planet. So here we are. My name's George Durrani. I joined this tribe in 1992. I served as the international chairman of the Mankind Project from 2008 until 2011. My mission is to alleviate suffering wherever I find it by healing the hearts of men and women and children. This 35th anniversary celebration came out of a conversation that I had nearly 2 years ago with one of our co-founders, Rich Tosi. It is still difficult for me to comprehend that other than the continent of Antarctica, all 6 continents, other continents on this planet are now represented here during this celebration and in the world of the Mankind Project. Congratulations to all of you who have made that happen with the work that you have done for the last 35 years. That is an epic achievement. And I, like all of you, am acutely aware of what we have lost by not being able to meet in person and by the many challenges that many of you are facing right now. Please know that my heart and the heart of this institution is with each of you. You are not alone. When I completed my new warrior training in 1992, I had a vision that one day in my lifetime, there would be 1 million men sitting again in circles on the earth, doing men's work. And for the last nearly 30 years, at times I've thought that was crazy. That was an insane vision. But today and yesterday, as I have celebrated with you and connected with you and heard about the work that we're doing in the world, I am convinced that it is well within our grasp. In fact, I'm sure it's going to happen. So thank you all for supporting men's circles in the world. More circles for more men in more places. And maybe now, more than ever, that is what is required for the planet. Our values, integrity, accountability, compassion, generosity, intercultural competency, leadership, and respect continue to be the guiding principles that form our behavior as Mankind Project entities in the world and as the men who do this work. I know of no other men's organization on the planet that is having a bigger impact for positive change as an organization than this one. And I am proud to continue to support it and be a member of it. I hope that yesterday you heard John Levitt's welcome and opening acknowledgement. I was so moved that I actually broke down in tears several times. It moved me that deeply. I won't repeat it except to say it accurately conveys the breadth and the scope of who is now represented in the Mankind Project and in the world that we occupy as men. I want to further acknowledge some individual men who are responsible for putting together these events of yesterday and today. To take something from an idea that then moves into a conversation and then becomes a project, and then to deliver it in the world the way this has been delivered. It takes something extraordinary, almost superhuman. And to remember that we were going to do this in person, and 30 days ago, we changed it to an online event to transform it like that successfully is incredible. That's the work of warriors, of new warriors. That's what we do. We respond, and then we move into action. So who are these men? You've heard their names already, but I'm going to say them again. First, Richard Torres, the engineer, the locomotive, the engine, the tireless engine. He created this event, not by himself, but he's been the prime mover of it. We would not be here without the work that he's done. Richard, thank you for everything. And second, John Lovett. You're going to hear more from John later today. But he was the 35th anniversary team leader, the admiral who steered the ship and made the hard calls and brought it into the harbor safely. John, thank you for everything. And third, Boyson Hodgson, who I hope all of you heard yesterday. And if you didn't, you need to go back and listen to what he said again and again. It was transformational. He is the clear, unambiguous voice and the action behind the public face of the Mankind Project in the United States and in many places else around the world. Boyson, thank you for everything. And I acknowledge also those who stand with and beside and behind those men. Dan Baldwin, Deb Mauger, Keith Jarvis, Scotty Krabler, Michael Russer, Don Huff, and a myriad of other people behind the scenes who have contributed to make this happen. Thank you to all of you. And I also want to thank the regional host, the Mankind Project USA, and the chair who sits institutionally and holds that space right now, Paul Samuelson. Paul, if you and the men with you had not said yes to the request from Rich Tosi to do this, it probably would not have happened. Thank you to MKP USA. In a moment, we're going to move deeper into the program for today. There's one other man I want to individually acknowledge now. He is going to be the co-host with me for the Founder Circle of Honor program. He co-produced, co-created, and wrote many of the pieces that you're going to hear and see and experience. His name is Robert Powell. And in a moment, he's going to take this over. Robert, thank you for your incredible and beautiful contribution. After the Circle of Honor section of the program is concluded, we're going to take a short break and then launch into the honoring of the founders. And in particular, we're going to honor one of the co-founders, Rich Tosi. Rich was the man who insisted in a good warrior-like way that this body of initiated men, this international body, of men who have shared the experience of going through the New Warrior training adventure find a way to come together again and connect. Rich, a big part of today's honoring and celebration is actually for you, just for you. Thank you for everything that you've done for the project and for me. And then we'll end this entire celebration today with a visionary statement from Bill Kauth, the other living co-founder. He will give us his vision for MKP and for the world. That's what's coming. And now I want to give you back to Robert Powell, who will lead us into the Founders Circle of Honor event. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, George. The Circle of Honor, the Founders Circle of Honor. Some of you may have no idea what this is. And so I'm going to give a bit of context, history, and an overview of what the Founders Circle of Honor is. In 1985, as you've heard, Ron Herring, Bill Kauth, and Rich Tosi created the New Warrior training adventure. Sadly, Ron died in 1993. But Bill and Rich have continued to support and serve the mission of the project. Over time, they have come to be called the founders. Bill holds the title of visionary, and Rich the title of founding president. Many times over the years, they have spoken of their desire to recognize and honor other men who have made extraordinary contributions to our work. In 2010, then MKP chairman George Durrani proposed the creation of a Circle of Honor to recognize such men. The founders agreed, and with George's participation, identified the first class of 5 honorees. 4 of these men had served as MKP chairs, while the 5th was a founder of what is now the Australia region. While there was no formal charter, the founders made it clear that the circle as a body would hold their spirit and be the steward of the work. Following the induction of the 2nd class in 2015, Bill and Rich decided that it was time for the circle to become self-perpetuating and find its place in the life of the project. Last year, Rich convened a selection committee consisting of himself, Bill, George, David Carr, and myself. We reviewed and updated the selection criteria for the class of 2020. A significant change was that men who worked as employees or contractors would now be eligible for selection. Also, an element that had always been implicit was now made explicit. To be selected, a man must be able to hold the values of both MKP cultures, the expansionist and preservationists, as the Stanford Alumni Consulting Team report had labeled them. Only by honoring this paradox in his MKP life could a man truly bring forth a third thing that moves the project forward. We brainstormed the names of men who would meet the criteria. The number, as always, was far too many for 1 year's selection. We discussed, debated, voted, sifted, and considered expanding the class size significantly. But in the end, we narrowed the choice to 6 men who had consistently stood at the top of our lists. We decided not to eliminate any of them, but to select all 6, and with that, to set a precedent for future classes, not to be limited to a specific number. Finally, Rich requested that the official name of the circle become the Founders Circle of Honor, and that is now how it will be known. George, would you introduce the class of 2010?
So it is my distinct privilege and pleasure to present to you the list of names of the 6 men who are being inducted today. Sorry, this is the class of 2010. Got it. So in 2010, these 5 men, together with the 2 living founders, and John Herring representing Ron Herring, who was deceased at that time, these 5 men were inducted in Louisville at the 25th anniversary celebration. Don Jones, who's now deceased, Curtis Mitchell, who you heard from today, Billy Hill, David Carr, who you will hear from later, Bill Cow, our co-founder, John Herring, Rich Tosi, and Jim Mitchell. Those were the first 5 plus 3. You want me to do the next group, Robert?
No, sorry. I was going to add, George, that each of the men of 2010 was a founder of a society or a major group in Mankind Project.
Correct.
The class in September of 2015, the Mankind Project International Circle held its annual meeting in Val de Consolation, France, at one of the Francophone training sites. As part of the event, the circle hosted a 30th anniversary dinner at which 5 men were inducted into the Circle of Honor. Only Michael Boyle of England of the UK and Ireland region, and I, representing MKP USA, were able to attend and receive our medals from Bill Kauth. A month later, in October 2015, Rick Bronick received his medal from both Rich and Bill at the World Elder Gathering in Kalani, Hawaii. George received his medal from Rich in 2017 in Tucson, where they were now both living. This year would have been similar had we not had this event when we could all be present virtually. And today we will honor James McCleary, the 5th member of the class of 2015, who was not able to be at any of the other events. George?
So in addition to honoring James McCleary today, these are the men who we will be inducting into the class of 2020. Christophe Despierre, Carl Greaser, Joe Lauer, John Levitt, Les Sinclair, and Tony Wilkinson. You will hear an introduction of each of those men from a man who either they selected or who is currently a member of the Founders Circle of Honor. Before we begin the ceremony for the men of the 2020 class, we want to complete the unfinished business from 2015, which is to induct Dr. James McCleary. And in order to do that, I want to introduce to you my good friend, a longtime servant of the project, a full leader, a former center director chair, a former vice chair of the project, a trainer of trainers, and a man among men, Mr. Martin Marks.
Thank you, George. I'm Martin Marks, powerful panther standing with red-bellied black snake. And it's my great honor to introduce Dr. James McCleary, one of the 2015 Founders Circle of Honor recipients. To list all of James's contributions is virtually impossible, particularly in the next few minutes. But I will give you a few of his most noteworthy accomplishments. James was initiated in October of 1992 and certified as a co-leader in 93, and then a full leader in 96, having served more than 150 New Warrior training adventures all around the world. For the past 30 years, he has been a groundbreaker for trainings in many different countries, a pathfinder for high school trainings, the Inward Journey, and the Inside Circle Foundation. James is the award-winning film director, along with his three sons, Jairus, Eon, and Miles, of the incredible documentary called The Work. When the Mankind Project experienced a crisis of inclusion many years ago, he organized and led the first weekends, which were carefully crafted to include equal numbers of non-white staff and initiates in order to create an environment of exposure to their culture. He brought MKP Brothers into many community projects in high schools and gatherings on the south side of Chicago, as well as led weekends for the counselors and youth participants of BAM, which is Becoming a Man. He organized multicultural trainings in Chicago for the certified leaders of the project, as well as helping to develop the communities in the UK and South Africa. He engineered the inclusion of Black South Africans in the first trainings there in South Africa by going into the townships and directly recruiting those men who otherwise would have been ignored. And he was also involved in the first trainings on the Lakota Pine Ridge Reservation. I've had the honor of serving with James on many training adventures, as well as most of the Inside Circle 4-day intensive trainings, which were held inside Folsom Prison, which is a level 4 maximum security facility here in California. And it was inside those prison walls that I witnessed the Beast Master. The spiritual name James was given by the convicts, doing some of the most transformational work I've ever experienced. His dedication to those men culminated with his 10-year journey to produce the award-winning documentary film called The Work, viewed by many film critics as one of the finest documentary films ever made. James has impacted the lives of literally thousands of men and women all around the world with his otherworldly facilitation, his unflinching courage, and his profound spirituality. And it is this man that I have the honor of calling my brother. And so I welcome now Dr. James McCleary into the Founders Circle of Honor. And so, James, I invite you to place the Medal of Honor on your heart and address this awesome gathering.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you, my brothers across the continent and the world. My ribbon broke, so here it is, and I'm going to set it down while I speak. I remember speaking to David Lindgren, and he asked me, what is happening in your life? Why would you come to a training? And I remember saying to him that I felt like I was behind the curtain and there was something I couldn't see or understand about who I was. And I went to that first training fully vulnerable and open to break open. Otherwise, I would have turned around and left. I would have been too angry at the people who were there to open their hearts and support me in my journey if I had not been vulnerable. And that was my first lesson. Seek to be vulnerable with the people that I come into contact with and support them in their own vulnerability. And that has been my mission since the very beginning. And it's taken me however many years since 1992 to really understand that all it takes, for me at least, is to be vulnerable and barriers can break down. My mission is to make a movement of love and surrender in the world. And I first got that help sitting in circles with men. And there was a barrier that I had to cross. It was an artificial barrier. And the tools that I got from MKP, the communication, spiritual speak, thinking and feeling that was taught to me by other men in MKP community is what has sustained me all of these adult years. My spiritual name from MKP is Father Lemur. And lemurs are nocturnal spirits who watch over the night. And my spiritual name that I have embraced finally after many years, 20 years of going into prison, is Beastmaster. And it takes the beast in us to tame the beast in others. And so no matter where I go, everyone to me is my spiritual brother and sister, my spiritual son and daughter, my spiritual father and mother, my spiritual sister and brother. And I finally have realized through doing this work by these men who supported me for many years in MKP, so that I feel totally congruent in that place. And so there's not much more to say, but to say aho to my brothers out there all over the world who are listening to this. Miss you. I'm having a great time living in sunny California, not too far from Mr. Martin Marks. And I say thank you, and I feel blessed and grateful. And ashe, I'm in.
Thank you, James. Our first honoree of the class of 2020 is Joe Lauer. And I am pleased to introduce 2010 honoree and founding president, Rich Tosi, who will honor Joe. Rich.
Okay. I'm live here. I'm sorry, I couldn't figure out. So Joe, you were initiated back in 1988 when MKP was in its infancy. In fact, there were only 2 centers at the time. But in 1992, a tsunami of 6 centers came online. We grew from 2 centers to 8 centers almost overnight. They spanned the US from San Diego to Houston to Washington, DC. What little organization we had was overwhelmed. We were on fire, but without a structure to contain our explosive energy. In stepped Joe Lauer as executive director, creating order out of chaos. Joe turned us into a real network. One of the amazing things he did was to visit every center every year, once every year in person. He did that, he continued to do that even as we grew.
Rich Tosi, may I ask you to turn on your video?
Oh, okay.
There you are.
There I am. Oh, okay. There I am. Sorry. Apologies, Joe. Men trusted Joe. He walked his talk. We called him Iron Joe for his fierce commitment to accountability and integrity. He established systems to help the network run smoothly. He ensured we were financially solid. A little known fact is that in 1993, Joe helped create the NWTA leader certification process, which is still in use today. Of Joe, I can say, if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be here. It is my honor and pleasure to welcome you, Joe Lauer, into the Founders Circle of Honor. And if you're there, Joe, put your medal on and let's hear from you.
Oh,
There he is.
thank you. Thank you. No, just the screen. Well, thank you, Rich. It's a real honor to, first of all, to have been your friend and Cal's friend for such a long time, over 35 years now, and to sit in this, albeit virtual, circle of men. Just the past 2 days, I've been sitting in awe of the global reach of this work that started in my hometown, and of all the men worldwide who have nurtured and fostered this network, this foster child. I wasn't one of the founders, but I thought of myself as one of the builders of this work, helping take what was at the time an adolescent organization and helping it grow into manhood, you might say. I first met Cal in '84, was invited to the very first training, declined because I had my kids that weekend, and I've always put family first. Then I met Cal Tosi in '87 at UIO with Patricia Clayson, who some have called the mother of the New Warrior Network. And when Bill and Cal hit it off right away, as we were both German Catholic Wisconsin boys, had a lot in common. When I met Rich, he was holding somebody in his arms, and he had about a 3-foot-long string of snot hanging down, and he was soaking wet from tears and sweat and snot and everything else. And it was love at first sight. Back in these days, I led my first training as a leader, which was also my fifth staffing. That's the old days. I served on the Milwaukee board for a while as a representative to the then National Council, and was a troubleshooter for Tosi on issues here and there. Tosi asked me if I would take on the job of ED. I said no. He asked me again. I said no. He said, no, I really want you to do this. And I said, well, I will under 2 conditions. You pay me and you mentor me. And that's how I became the first professional executive director of the New Warrior Network. The hazards of sudden growth were evident. I likened it to a ship in the middle of a hurricane with nothing secured on deck and all the sheets to the wind. So we began to set about the job of tying things down, working with men, talking literally to each center director, each leader, finding out what they wanted and needed from this work, from this organization that we were becoming. And together, not just me, I was conducting the orchestra a little bit, but together we forged a network out of chaos. We forged sacred covenants, not contracts, that between the centers and the whole, between the leaders and the whole. And we conducted a leader process that helped us become a more collegial and democratic process of choosing leadership for trainings. If you think the training, the leader training process is imperfect now, you should have seen it then. Through a lot of men's work and the grace of God, we became what one of my colleagues calls a chaotic organization, on the knife edge between chaos and order, between creativity and conservation. We were able to tap the wisdom and the energy of the whole community, the whole system. And for a period of about 4 years, we grew and differentiated, kind of like an embryo, getting arms, legs, different organs. We suddenly had a center body that emerged, a leader body, a Lodge Keepers Association or society, elder body, and expanded our leadership development. And during this period of time, we became an international organization as we opened centers in the UK and in Canada. So we went from stem cells to differentiated organic functioning. At the end of 4 years, I realized that I was not the next man to lead this organization to the next phase of the organization. I also was marrying the love of my life, Sarah Schley, and she and I wanted to do something together. And the work she could do with me in a men's network was severely limited, let's say. So, and I also did not think I had the vision to take it to the next place. So we turned it over. But it was one of the joys of my life to be the ED. I continued on the board for a number more years and continued to lead trainings until about 10 years ago. I just want to take, in closing, to honor Calth and Tosi one more time for trusting me with their work, initiating me into it. And it has literally changed the trajectory of my life. I would not be the man sitting here with the woman sitting in the next room watching this on YouTube, the 2 teenagers downstairs, the life we've built without this work. From the bottom of my heart, my deepest soul, thank you, thank you, thank you, 1,000 thank yous to all the men who have been part of this circle. Amen.
Thank you, Joe. It is about time you joined this circle. Welcome. You initiated me in 1992. I'll never forget. The next man who's going to be inducted into the circle is Carl Grieser. And to introduce him, he asked his friend and my mentor, my elder mentor, Kirby Benson, to do the introduction. Kirby is a former chairman of the elder body and one of the men who envisioned, created, and delivered multiple world elder gatherings. He is, in my view, the living model of who an elder warrior is in the work. Kirby Benson, please introduce Carl Grieser to this body.
Thank you, George. It is a great pleasure to introduce our next founder, Circle of Honor recipient, Carl Grieser. I worked with Carl for 3 years on the executive committee. Working side by side with this man was a great privilege and a wonderful opportunity for me. Carl was initiated in the Northwest Center in February of 1997. He was the Northwest Center Board Chairman from 1999 to 2000. He was the MKPI Executive Director from 2001 to 2011. Oversaw the incorporation and launch of the MKP Foundation in 2006. Applied for and secured the Stanford Alumni Counseling Team in 2009. Led the reorganization of MKP to separately incorporate MKP USA and MKPI 2010. Was instrumental in developing safety standards and leadership roles in Outward Bound Texas, North Carolina, and Canadian wilderness schools. He was the Wilderness Program Director for Vision Quest for Troubled Youth in Tucson from 1977 to 1980. And he is a graduate of the University of Arizona College of Medicine in 1985 and is currently working as an urgent care physician in Ashland, Oregon. Thank you so much, Carl, for your service, your generosity, and just who you are. Carl.
Thanks, Kirby. And I think I'm supposed to put this on now, so I will. I'm finding it amazing how emotional this electronic medium is. I was looking forward, as we all were, to being face to face, and it's a little shocking to me how intense this feels right now. So I want to thank all of you who are joining us and all of you who did the hard work of getting this all together on such short notice. In late 2000, got a note here to slow myself down. In late 2000, I stood before the men tasked with choosing the next executive director of MKP. And I shared these deeply meaningful words. And I apologize to the translators who will struggle with the next few phrases. Ladies and gentlemen, hobos and tramps, cross-eyed mosquitoes and bow-legged ants. I come before to stand behind, to tell you something I know nothing about. Early in the morning, in the middle of the night, 2 dead boys got up to fight. Back to back, they faced each other, drew their swords and shot each other. That goes on for verses and verses. I had witnessed at that time Don Jones reciting D.H. Lawrence, naked, at the top of his lungs to the rising sun. And the best I brought to the table was this odd bit of nonsense. But for me, there was wisdom in the words, I come before to stand behind, to tell you something I know nothing about. That was my way of telling the truth about myself, of owning the audacity of thinking I deserved a place at the table. And by the way, it also describes our best facilitators, who know that their task is to lead from behind, believing that the initiate knows best what he needs to do on the carpet. That's how I began 10 years of service to the project, and it's where I stand once again. Then I really knew very little about the project. I was a guy from the Northwest Center who happened to have big ideas about how we could make the NWTA safer. Now, again, I know nothing because for 9 years, my only involvement has been my I group. That fact was central when I asked myself what I'd learned in my 10 years that would be helpful as the world is reshaped by Trump, neo-fascism, and Corona for the horribly worse, and hopefully in the end, for the much, much better. That question was particularly difficult because much of what I thought I was doing, creating an executive director and staff in the model of effective modern nonprofits, vanished in a couple of years as MKP moved on to a new organizational model. So how did I last 10 years? I know that not long after I shared that silly poem, Hal Klegman asked me how long I intended to serve as executive director. I told him about 4 years, which logic dictated, but I felt that tingling in my body that I've come to know as spirit, which said quietly, or maybe 10. After that, I didn't have a choice because it was the only thing I had in my life, which I was pretty sure was what Spirit wanted me to do. I didn't know at that time what the more experienced men who came after me knew, that the job was impossible. That trying to carve a coherent path between our constituencies, leaders, elders, lodge keepers, center directors, and between the centers and MKP's dreaded XCOM, and between the US centers and the growing centers around the world was impossible. All I knew was that I was called to the work. And as Don Jones was fond of saying, men's work is hard work. And at times it was excruciatingly hard. Looking back over those years, it seemed the project was met with every challenge imaginable. And much of what we created was in reaction to men behaving badly. Those challenges became the fire that fueled our growth. As I've aged, I've realized, like Jackson Browne sings, that what I thought was happening wasn't necessarily happening at all. So I speak with some humility when I claim that what I and we were doing was helping MKP live into the mature masculine. For me, that meant creating a backbone of policies and practices that pushed us in MKP toward becoming more responsible by holding centers and financial leaders accountable, More ethical, by creating a policy to address power differentials within the project. More inclusive, ironically, by risking the survival of the project by separating MKPI from the control of MKP USA. More transparent by telling the truth about what we did on the weekend, trusting that the power of the training would still work, even for men who already thought they knew what they were getting into. Right. More realistic by acknowledging that our training was not for all men. Not really. Not for men with serious mental illness or addiction. It cost us to learn those lessons. It cost some men. And by acknowledging that all beliefs were not welcome here. Not bigotry, not racism, not homophobia. And more aware by creating a safer place for men of color, gay men, and eventually trans men. And by making it explicitly clear that while we were doing our best to create real men, we were not interested in changing anyone's sexual orientation. The statement we drafted on reparative therapy, which is still on our website, remains the single most meaningful experience of my time with MKP. Our work was hard work, but it was also wonderful, loving, deeply powerful, and at times just fucking hilarious. What I miss most about not meeting face to face is all the laughter I know we'd be sharing at the Glow Bar. I'm grateful that I could serve you all, and I want to acknowledge some of the men who made it possible. I frankly have no idea where I am on the timeline, so if anybody wants to pull the hook, pull it. But here are the men I feel blessed to have served with. The chairman, David Carr, Curtis Mitchell, Jim Mitchell, George Durrani. My staff, Boyson Hodgson, Keith Jarvis, as well as Drury Heffernan, Stephen Judith, Trip Moulton, and Mike Curtin. To the loyal opposition who forced me to see what the XCOM looked like from the centers, especially Hubert Van Dyke and Paul Moss. To the men who pushed us to wake up, Thomas Griggs, James McCleary, King Mott, Robert Powell, Tony Wilkinson, Jürgen Burtz, Gino Opelt, and many, many more. To the deep support I felt, Don Jones, Hank Kinsey, Hal Kleitman, David Bowerly, Martin Marks, Gene McMahon. And to my deep teachers, Cliff Berry, Snake Bloomstrand, Bill Wick. And to the men around that mythical kitchen table in a time before time, Kouth, Herring, and Tosi. And finally, to the men who eased my way out of the door with their generous financial support. It was a wonderful gift which helped me through the most difficult transition of my life. During my 10 years, we spent way too much time and energy trying to create a mission statement with impact and heart. We never did better than the words I want to close with. We are an order of men called to reclaim the sacred masculine for our time through initiation, training, and action in the world. Bless you all and stay safe.
Thank you, Carl. As one of the men who stood with you in 2000, I'm so glad they made the right decision. Our next 2020 honoree is Tony Wilkinson. And I am pleased to introduce 2010 honoree David Carr, former MKP and MKPI chair, a man I'm proud to call my friend and mentor, who was there very close to the beginning and has always been there, who will now honor Tony. David?
Thank you, Robert. And thank you, Carl. That's a tough act to follow. Carl, bless you for your 10 years of service. It was my honor to serve with you for 2 of them as chair. And it's my honor to introduce Tony Wilkinson as a member of the class of 2020 in the cohort of Founders Circle of Honor. Tony, good enough horse, was initiated in the UK in 2000. He grew up in Northern Scotland, but has lived in London for the past 35 years and has been in a relationship with the lovely Katie for the past 20. Tony's great grandfather was Robert Burns' younger brother, which makes him the great nephew of Robert Burns. So it's no surprise that he studied theater. He became a professional actor at the Old Vic in Bristol. He also plays the guitar. In our circle, Tony is probably best known for being the architect, along with Carl Grieser, of the regionalization of the Mankind Project and the formation of the Mankind Project International. He has served as executive director of MKPI through its early turbulent years for 5 years until the organization was restructured and he became the administrator of MKPI as they were no longer a separate corporation. I need my glasses. Tony has been the glue and the cornerstone of MKP UK in Ireland for over a decade. It's largely through his efforts that they've been so successful and stable. And that's also true for the European leader body. He's been the keystone and the mainstay. Tony helped organize the transition from the international leader body to 4 regional leader bodies, which I think the European leader body is the best example of who we are and what we can be. And that's largely due to Tony. What can I say about Tony? We are a global brotherhood in reality as well as in name, in large part because of the work of Tony Wilkinson.
David, will you please slow down a little bit, please, for our translators?
Okay, I'm done. It's my pleasure and honor to welcome Tony into the Founders Circle of Honor in 2020.
Thanks, David.
Bless you, Tony.
Thank you. It's the first time I've ever heard anyone ask you to slow down. Not. Okay, so I have to take out my medal. Place it around my neck. There it is. So I went through the NWTA in December 2000. And I had a truly
transformational experience. And over the next few years, I began to get more and more involved with MKP in England. And then in 2006, I attended my first international MKP meeting in Houston. And I'd never experienced anything like that before in my life. I get goosebumps now, even thinking about it. There were so many incredible men, all in one place. And I really had the best time there. I had a lot of fun. So at that meeting, I worked with David Carr, Billy Hill, Les Sinclair, Carl Greaser, and Curtis Mitchell. Now that is quite a cast of characters, I think you would agree. And I worked with them to get something important for MKP UK agreed at the Project Council. And each of those men gave me an open-hearted welcome. And each mentored me in their own way how best to go about things. And as you can perhaps imagine, with some of those men, or perhaps all of those men, there were plenty of tricks I was rapidly brought up to speed with. I believe I was learning from the masters. So that trip to Houston liberated something deep inside of me. And I was lucky enough to keep returning year after year to the Project Council meetings. And I kept coming back because I wanted more of it. And I was also finding the same thing in my work with MKP UK. And after a while, I came to understand that what I was receiving was recognition. Recognition. I was being recognized by these men. I was being recognized as the man I had yet to recognize as myself. I was in the process of truly coming home to myself. Perhaps for the first time ever in my life. And that process of recognition, of coming home, allowed me to accept myself and to accept more of the qualities I had only previously recognized in others. So I followed my heart by getting more involved with MKP. And I am eternally grateful that I was allowed to do so. And over the last 20 years, my life has evolved to a place where I feel truly blessed. Truly blessed to be happy with who I am and happy doing what I do. And here I am, coming full circle, joining all of the men I mentioned earlier, along with the others who I also have a high regard for, which includes Michael Boyle and Christophe de Pierre, who were both on my training in December 2000, And I'm being put in the circle of honor. And I'm ready to accept that there is a place for me there. I recognize that. So we talk a lot about shadow in MKP, the parts of ourselves we hide, repress, and deny. And for me, I believe there's a common misperception that everything that's held in shadow, is somehow dark or bad in some way. And me, I go the other way with this. And I hold to one of Jung's less well-known quotes, which is, "The shadow is 90% gold." And as I've dug down through the layers of toxic shame and limiting self-beliefs that I've taken on, and my apologies to the translators, I'm getting all kinds of messages here. So as I've dug down through the layers of toxic shame and limiting self-beliefs I had taken on, I've rediscovered my own golden self, and I'm truly grateful. I'm grateful to everyone who has held me, blessed me, supported me, challenged me, and laughed with me all along the way. And my deep gratitude goes to Rich Tosi, Bill Cow, and Ron Herring for what they pulled off 35 years ago. I'm in.
Thank you, Tony. It's really good to see you and hear from you again. Blessings to you and welcome to the Circle of Honor. So I'm going to introduce a man who's been with the project for a long, long time, who's going to introduce another man who's been with the project for a long, long time. Let me tell you first about Rick Bronick. Rick is a longtime leader of trainings. He's a fellow Circle of Honor inductee. He was inducted in 2015. He's a trainer of trainers, and one of the men who's devoted a considerable amount of time and energy to teaching primarily white privileged men like me how to become multiculturally more literate, more knowledgeable, and more awake. So I'm introducing Rick Bronick so he can introduce you to Les Sinclair. Rick. Unmute yourself, Rick.
Thank you so much, George. Wow, you make me sound really old. Dear friends around the world, what a privilege I have today to speak about my dear friend, Les Sinclair Dingo. I've known Les for 29 years. And back when I first met him, I thought, who is this tall, good-looking, immensely graceful, affable man with the beautiful Aussie accent? I soon came to know Les as an amazing leader and a creator of communities, among many other things. And now 29 years later, Les is still tall, good-looking, affable, with a beautiful Aussie accent, and damn it, he still has hair. In my experience, what sets Les apart is not his many years of work in show business, in front of and behind the scenes, though he admits pretty easily that he's never met a stage he didn't adore. nor his decades of service to MKP. In too many capacities to name here. In my opinion, it isn't even that he worked tirelessly to help start both the Australian and the French-speaking communities for many, many years. No, what's so palpably special about Les is his deep, abiding love of men and his incredible love and appreciation of what he calls the sacred theater of what we know as the NWTA. Les's love just radiates and inspires men all over the world, including me. And I know there's hundreds on this call today that know exactly what I'm talking about. We've all felt Les's infectious joy for our work that has kept him leading for such a long time. Les and I have led many trainings together and served together on MKPI and MKP US boards as well. As we've got to know each other better over the years, I realized that this is why he's one of the most beloved men in our organization. It's due to his generous spirit and open, loving heart. Personally, I've known Les as a very supportive and loyal friend who was my tour guide through Paris when we spent a week there together some years ago. We've also spent a lot of time talking about what it's like to be the divorced father of daughters and raising daughters. We have shared the challenges of fathering. Another example of Les's openness and generosity. So today, brothers and sisters, I'm here to honor the showman, the MKP community builder, the leader, the friend, and the huge loving heart of this beautiful man. My friends, I'm very proud and deeply delighted to be presenting Les Sinclair, Dingo, to all of you. Les, félicitations, mon cher frère. Merci pour toutes tes années de service. Good on you, mate. Brothers and sisters, please join me in welcoming Les Sinclair to the 2020 Founders of Circle Honor. Please, Les, put on that beautiful medal and now address this group.
Thank you very much, Rick. I'm not used to speaking in front of people. This is new for me. You know, all my life, I have been an earnest quester, seeking to understand what it is to be successful, to be happy, loved, to be loved, and where to focus and direct my energy. Yes, I'm a serial seeker. I've studied religions, belief systems, attended many workshops and trainings, and practiced yoga for over 40 years. Frankly, I've been on everything but roller skates. One day in August of '91, I drove down to San Diego to attend a New Warrior training adventure. I gathered my stuff and proceeded up to the Sensei Challenger. There stood Ron Herring. When Ron looked deep into me with his intense blue eyes and dancing eyebrows, he said, "Once you go through that door, your life will never be the same." He was right. It hasn't been the same.
Hey, Les, can you slow down just a little bit for our translators, please?
I will. He was right. It hasn't been the same. He said, This is an initiation for men. Initiation means, it comes from Latin, initiare, to start or begin something. Start what? Waking up. Tell the truth. Taking responsibility for my thoughts and actions. Emotional intelligence. Being of service. When William Shakespeare wrote these famous words, to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them. Hamlet was asking himself if he should live or die. This is the most famous existential question of all time. It could be interpreted as to be or not be awake, to be aware of my thoughts and actions and not be asleep in life. Yes, to act and not be passive. I have the privilege when I lead trainings to teach what I call warrior mindfulness. Staying awake, paying attention on purpose, as if your life depends on it, because it does. I'm truly honored to receive this award and acknowledgement for my service and leadership. I consider my initiation experience as equal in importance to the birth of my two daughters, Emily and Allegra. At the age of 16, I started my professional life in Melbourne, Australia, as what is known in the theater as a triple threat: singer, dancer, actor. But in my case, it was more like stumble, tumble, and fall. I approached the training as spiritual and sacred theater. We, the staff and leaders, have a script, the protocols. We are assigned roles to play, to learn and memorize our lines. We rehearse our roles, then circle up in excitement for what's to come, to receive the participants, our new brothers. It is within the strong container, our theater space, we create the magic of initiation. However, there's a big difference. Instead of pretending to be playing a character, we are authentic and real. What follows is sacred improvisation.
Little slower, please, Les.
When warriors are in service to the greater good, we go out and do battle with the enemy. Now, in this time of existential uncertainty, we are tasked with staying at home, washing our hands, and being passive, waiting our time. I'm grateful that we have this technology to stay connected. I'm deeply honored to accept this medal and certificate. So be safe, be awake, and be the best you can be. And the adventure continues. Thank you. Merci. Danke. Gracias. Grazie. Obrigado. Tak.
Thank you, Les. But don't go too far away, because you are going to be the man honoring our next 2020 class member, Christophe Depierre, when you're ready.
Well, this is really a great, great honor for me to introduce my dear friend Christophe. I met Christophe in the UK on a bilingual training, French and English. And we had a conversation about what it would take to put on trainings in France. And we agreed that we could make it happen. So for several years, I went over to Paris and stayed with my dear friend Christophe. He'd always say, "Are you going to come home?" Which was so beautiful, inviting me into his home and his family. What you may not know about Christophe, he's a world-renowned luthier, a violin maker. He, at one time, in the world of violin makers, there was a violin that was stolen from the Los Angeles Philharmonic, and word got out. One day, a man came into Christophe's atelier, his shop, and said he had a violin for sale. Christophe recognized it as a work of art, a great Italian masterpiece. The man wanted 20,000 euros. It was worth almost 400,000 euros. He contacted the authorities, and the man, of course, was arrested, but the violin was sent back to the Los Angeles Philharmonic. These are the wonderful things that Christophe has done as a man. His leadership is well known. So it's my great, great honor to present Christophe the honor, the médaille de Cercle de Fondateur.
Thank you.
Alors, j'ai le grand honneur et le grand plaisir d'accueillir Christophe de Pierre dans le cercle d'honneur. Et maintenant, je t'invite à placer la médaille sur ton cœur et dire quelques mots au rassemblement.
Merci, merci Les. J'ai mis I did put the medal. As you might listen, I'm a French man, so English is not my native language, so I apologize for that. I send you some good energy from France. It's 10 p.m. where I am. What I want to say is that I feel deeply honored to receive that medal. I feel very blessed. But it's not me alone who is receiving it. Behind me, with me, there is all the French-speaking community, Belgium, Switzerland, France. All the men at the beginning in France in 1997 who believed we could do NUTTA in French. Those men at the beginning were like Denis Gillier, Bruno Rossi, Cyril Chantreau, Serge Nicolet, Pierre de Romanet, many more. And they are all with me tonight. I want to thank them. It took us a lot of energy and time to translate the protocols, to go on staff in England, to learn the skills and be able to do an initiation in French. I want to thank the English community too, who was our mentor and gave us the space and time to do it. In September 2001, we did a bilingual training with half French staff and half French initiate. And a year later, we could have, in 2002, the first French-speaking NUWTA in the world. Personally, the gift for me was more in building that weekend, finding a site, taking care of details, learning to facilitate the protocols, than it was in doing the weekend itself.
We're being asked to have you slow down just a little bit, please, Christophe.
Maybe I can speak in French. It will be easier for the translator. When it ended up on that Sunday evening of 2002, we were the proud father of a new baby who was born. This baby was a new warrior. His grandfather were men like John Kirk, Paul Hawkes, Les Sinclair, my mentor, who is the real grandfather of the French community, James McCleary, Snake Bloomstrand, Steve Kushner, Drury Heffernan, and many more.
Christophe, if you would like to present in French.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I like to make jokes. I did write it because it's very emotional for me to speak in English. So this baby has grown tremendously since. Today we are doing 14 NUWTA in French a year, and the weekend fulfill in 10 minutes when we open the site to register a man. That's incredible. And I want to thank all the men who put their energy to make it happen. What can I say about the gift that I received from this work? 23 years ago, when I did my initiation, my son, Alexander in English, was 6 months old. And I was scared to death because I didn't have a clue how to be a father and what I was supposed to do with him. I had a great father. He was a kind man, but he was totally absent emotionally. So when I found myself in this circle of 80 men, I realized that I found the man I was looking for. To be a better man, to be a better human being, and to be a better father. I want to thank to all the women behind those men. The women who stayed home, took care of the children, took care of the house, and finally took care of the men who came back home. Doing an initiation in MKP is like going to war, but it's a war inside. A war without shadows and a non-violent war. Thanks to the women who understood that and gave us the support to do it. Touched my heart. Today, I'm a happy man. I feel complete, and my life is full of gifts. Full of friends and full of love. I have so many passions in my life. Being a luthier, making instruments, doing seminars all around the world, working in therapy with Dowsing sticks, raising my son, Alexandre, and loving my fiancée, Daphne. Do I deserve all those gifts? I think so, because I did put all my heart in that work, facing my shadows and trying to go toward the light. In 2000, I nearly died from a meningitis, and I stayed 4 months at the hospital. I was blind, deaf, and paralyzed. And during an operation, I did a NDE, a near-death experience. And when I came back, my life was not the same. It was another initiation for me. I thank God to be alive today, because I know that life is a gift, and I want to take care of that gift. And I know too, it doesn't belong to me. Nothing belongs to me, in fact. Only the love that I received and gave. And it's the only thing I will bring with me when I will leave this world, this beautiful blue planet. That wonderful blue planet that we are destroying today. And who is telling us with that COVID-19 that it's time to stop killing her. It's time to stop killing the life around us. And it's time to love each other. And it's time to respect life. And the time is now. I love you all. Thanks. Namaste.
Thank you, Christoph. You moved me and you moved the circle today. Welcome to the Founders Circle of Honor. It's good to have you with us. And I want to just acknowledge the translators for the incredible work they're doing behind the scenes to make sure that as many men and women in the world who are with us can follow what we're doing, all of it obviously in English. Blessings and thanks to you all. So the next honoree is John Levitt. And to introduce him is the man who has been working side by side with me today, Robert Powell. He's a fellow member of this Circle of Honor. He's a former Center Director Chair. He's also a former chair of the Mankind Project USA in its formative years. And he's now serving as leader emeritus. And Robert and I have known each other since the early 1990s. Robert, tell us what we don't yet know about John Levitt.
Thank you, George. John and I initiated in 1992. He in April in Chicago at the age of 20. And I in Washington, D.C. in November at the age of 47. We first met in 1994 when I was DC manager of trainings and he was the coordinator for the first Philadelphia Center, first NWTA. He picked my brain for the then 2-year-old center's best practices. And somehow we both managed to get through those early years. Over the next 15 years, we staffed together a number of times, but it was only in 2010 that John burst into my consciousness. He arrived one evening at a DC meeting with Bruce Maxwell of the Stanford Act fame, who was there to explain unification. While Bruce was clear and forceful, John was explosive and persuasive in his enthusiasm for the idea. That was the beginning of our work together. Over the last 10 years, we collaborated on unification, MKP USA finances, MKPI regional relationships, and just about every issue arising in MKP circles. John has held quite a few official roles, both in the USA region and with the MKP International Circle. But to an even greater extent, John has been a trusted advisor and actor whose voice and heart is known and heeded just about everywhere. His ability to facilitate, both on trainings and at business meetings, is a joy to behold and a blessing to be part of. He claims to sleep, but I seriously doubt that. He talks to men around the world and always at their convenience. And I seldom remember mentioning a man whose background and heart John doesn't know and understand well. While doing all this for our health as an organization, John has also done his personal work and set off on the NWTA leader track. He was certified as a co-leader and is now a full leader candidate. He has a large circle of leaders in training and co-leader candidates whom he mentors, seemingly as yet another full-time career. Now 48, John is poised to serve for many more years the institution and its mission that he loves deeply and that he has already profoundly influenced. At 74, I know I may not live to see all that he has yet to do with and for the Mankind Project. But I am sure that we can always count on this man who has every right to be introduced as Levitt, John Levitt. And now I invite you, John, to place the medal upon your heart and speak to this group.
Thanks so much, Robert, for your friendship all these years. Steve and Billy Hill, all of you in New Zealand and Australia, thanks for getting up early again. And in Europe, Israel, Africa, for staying up so late. Just like we do on the NWTA. Brother Circle of Honor recipients, past and present. Rich and Shar, Bill and Zoe. To all of my friends around the world, thank you so much for all you've done to enrich my life and the lives of our global human family. Thank you to the men in Chicago who were there to receive my father and I in Hamo Woods in 1992. Broken and messy and seeking something profound. Thank you to all the DC Center and Philadelphia Center men who we built Philadelphia with in the early days. And the men who held me when I wailed, shook, raged, and shuddered. Together with my I groups, the early shadow workers, and with David Michael as a consistent guide, I was content for, I jumped ahead. I moved through the long, dark nights of my soul into the service of my life. I'll share that what distracted me was George Durrani going to tears and writing in the group behind the scenes that's supporting us. A decade ago, I didn't go looking for honor. I'm grateful for it, but I wasn't an international or national project leader. I was content for someone else to do the hard work. When I heard about expansion, I felt a calling to protect locally what was sacred and wild and rare. And now Bill Kauth is crying too. Hey, Bill. Our NWTA. Empowering men to missions of service. Changing the world one man at a time. There are still deep roots from the early work in my veins. Hi, Greg. Saw that. When they came to Philadelphia, I went to tell Bruce Maxwell, the Stanford Alumni Consulting Team, and other visionary leaders to leave the training center I helped build and the project I loved as it was. I was challenged with the knowledge that the project, as then designed in all its beauty, wasn't working in some ways, and that the change was very risky. And I fought within myself as much as anywhere. I still do. After all, that is where the work has always led me. I feared that the work of unification in the US region, healthy regionalization around the world, organizational development and cultural evolution, while preserving our wildness and focus on mission, was too steep a climb. As Carl Greiser, who gave us so much, said just an hour ago, the job looked either impossible or very close to it. I saw Kauth speak, and inspired by his words and a tea with Charles Eisenstein, I made a choice to lean in. Over years, the leaning became a fire, and the fire turned into a blaze inside my soul. That the Mankind Project, with its wounds more healed and its mission and focus, really could fulfill our shared responsibility to the future of humanity even better as a cohesive, well-organized, well-resourced institution. Autonomous in each region, together as an international circle of brother regions around the world, grounded in respect and collaboration. My passion grew as new and second generation visionaries like David Bowerly, Tony Wilkinson, Mike Elser, Dan Pico, King Mott, Stan Sherman, George Faison, John Wilson, Michael Pierce, Thomas Griggs, Henry Thurman, Mike Tiley, and Julian Devereaux, along with the 100 or 1,000 of men and women I didn't just mention, influenced this past decade of my life and service. This isn't in my writing. I used to lead off meetings with the team in the USA region. Reminding us that we were the finest group of professionals that MKP had to offer. Boyson Hodgson, Dan Baldwin, along with volunteers, Bob Oser, Russell Cramp, Keith Jarvis, John Bacon, Greg Gondron, Martin Marks, David Rose, Craig Nevelo, Robert Shull, and 100 more local leaders, volunteers, and brothers where I live. Many more than I can ever say. New learnings from Gender Equity and Reconciliation International and the Better Man movement have added to my resolve to serve the human family, while remaining grounded in this work. To all, named and unnamed today, I am grateful. And for those who have walked the distance with me, including my partner, Jessica, sitting here, there's Snippet again, my daughter, Aurora, my son, Theo, who grew up this decade with this work, and together have paid the highest price for my service. I am deeply honored and deeply grateful. You have each made me a better man. When I was a little boy, I looked up to my dad. I wanted to be a fraction of who he was. So for my father, Aaron Levitt, Elder Sparrow, April 1992, who passed before he could see me standing here with you. Would have said to me, just like he did on the Staten Island ferry 40 years ago, these 8 lines from Rudyard Kipling's If. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, or so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, then yours is the earth and all that's in it. And which is more, you'll be a man, my son. I miss my dad. Thank you all for what we're building together and for what this project will yet become over the next 35 years as it meets its responsibility to share the gift that we are with the future of humanity in more countries, languages, and circles than we ever imagined possible. Thank you all.
Thank you, John. You're just ripping my heart open today.
Thank you, George.
It's not just me. Just need a moment. So when we sit down and talk about the men to select into the circle, we always wonder, are we making the right choices? I've been doing this for 10 years now. And today, as I heard 7 men share, I realized again that, yeah, we're making the right choices. And I know we're missing some men, and I know we're going to be adding some men to the circle, but I'm just so moved and so grateful to be a part of an organization that does the work of honoring the men who serve it. So congratulations to the 7 new inductees into the Founders Circle of Honor. What I'd like to do, Boyson and Michael, is if we could bring up and activate those 7 men and have them join Robert and I. We're going to do that right now and do a worldwide honoring of these new inductees. Before we take, we're going to cut it to 10 minutes from 15 because we're running a little over. We'll take a 10-minute break after this, but if the men who have been honored, if you could all get back on screen, turn your cameras on. Let's see, Joe Lauer, are you still with us? I hope so.
I am, but it won't let me turn my camera on.
Oh, let me try.
Let's see if we can do it from where Boyson is.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
All right, so we've got 2. Who else are we missing? Is McCleary still with us?
James is not in the room now.
Okay. And We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who are we missing besides James? Tony Wilkinson, he probably went to bed. It's really late in the UK.
I think Tony must have gone to sleep.
Okay. So the men who are here, Carl and Joe and John and Christoph and Leslie, Les Sinclair. So I'm going to do a warrior blessing and honoring of the collective. And if you men around the world, I know that we can't see you and they can't see you, but if you would join me and the women and anyone else online and take a moment and acknowledge and bless and thank and honor this extraordinary group of men who have made a difference in the lives of this institution and in the lives of the tens of thousands of men who they have served over the years, and the hundreds of thousands of lives that they have touched from there. On behalf of the Mankind Project, the international body of initiated warriors who have shared the experience with you, I welcome you, I honor you, I bless you, and I thank you on behalf of the Mankind Project. Blessings to you, man.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bless us all.
So now we're going to take a 10-minute break, men and women. And then when we return, the last portion of today's program is devoted to honoring our founders. So please do not turn off your computers. Do go and take care of yourself, get some water, use the bathroom. Please wash your hands and come back and join us in about 10 minutes. Aho.
Thank you all for being here. 10-minute break, and we'll see you right back here. Thank you all. paging Bill Kauth. Bill Kauth, if you are in the room in the webinar, please raise your hand. Let me know. We're going to be coming back in just a few minutes. Thank you all for hanging out. Hope you had an opportunity to get yourself a glass of water or whatever beverage you choose. We'll see you in a moment. Hey everyone, Boysen Hodgson here. We will have just another minute and then we will resume and begin the ceremony honoring our founder, Rich Tosi. Next person on screen will be Bill Kauth. Please hang on for just one more minute.
Okay, that's good.
Greetings, Bill Kauth.
Hi.
So everyone, welcome back. We have 260 plus folks in the room with us right now and more watching on YouTube. And it is my distinct honor to welcome you to this next part of our 35th celebration, an honoring of our founder, Rich Tosi. And to introduce Rich and to say some words, here is Bill Kauth. Bill, thank you and welcome.
Wow, thank you. I didn't expect to be doing this. So I need to practice speaking slow because I'm normally a pretty quick spoken guy. So this feels so right to be honoring Tosi. And I'll be doing a little talk at the very end, in which I'll be certainly sharing a little more depth about my love for this guy. It was, it's been such an amazing adventure we shared for 35 plus years. Oh my God. Feels like, you know, we were warriors together and lovers and kings. We just did it all together. It's been absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for creating this.
Please slow down, Bill.
Oh, God, I forgot again. Yeah, so it's been a heck of an adventure. No. We'll cover a lot of that later. Yeah, I feel complete, Poison.
So I believe that your next piece is to introduce Rich, and then I will bring Curtis Mitchell back.
Oh, it's
for
my
an honoring.
piece. Okay, I'm sorry. I got confused as to where these pieces belonged.
There you go.
I can say that when the call came in to me, you know, early on as a feminist therapist at a feminist conference to do something for men, I immediately thought of Ron Herring because we had been doing Gestalt work together for years, and I need to slow down. And I knew his brilliance and his creativity and his sensitivity. And I had only known Tosi for maybe a year, 2 years maybe. But we had been in emotionally cathartic workshops, and I'd seen his heart. I'd seen his ferocity. I knew that Marine Corps part of him, and I'd seen his tenderness. I'd seen his tears and his grief, and they were just as real as anything I'd ever seen. And I just intuitively knew this guy. He's the guy. So I went and asked him, and of course he turned me down. So I asked him again and again, and he finally, I think he just plain out, I wore him down with my passion, and he agreed to do it. And we started, as the legend goes, meeting around his kitchen table. And one of the things we wanted to do was make sure there was nothing else going on that would interfere with this thing that we were creating. So we'd already done the Robert Bly work. And the only other thing that was out there was something called Justin Sterling, I think it was Men, Sex, and Power. So somehow, again, I invited Tosi, honestly, at the last minute to fly to California to do this intensive training. And somehow Tosi agreed to do it. So we flew out there. And I remember in the course of that, Tosi's heart popped open, and he knew he was in the right place at that time. So by the time we got back, the three of us were in full alignment. And I remember very precisely Tosi's ferocity, his fierceness served us so well. There was a certain entitlement in Ron, and he'd get there late. And Tosi would say in no uncertain terms, "God damn it, Ron, you're late." And Ron would kind of weasel around, and Tosi held him absolutely accountable until we were all laying on the kitchen floor and getting snot all over the linoleum. And once we had done our work, once we had, opened those emotional spigots, what flowed through us, I still consider a miracle. I think of us as being pretty ordinary guys from Milwaukee that opened that funnel and allowed this archetypal miracle to flow through us. It was so beautiful seeing the men in that circle today share how it had touched their lives. I'm so glad we're here to honor Tosi today. Feels so right. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And now we will bring back into the room Curtis Mitchell. Curtis, would you like to share next?
Hello, Rich. Good to see you after all this time. Hi, Shar. Hi.
Yeah, that's Shar and my son Tony in the background.
Hi, Tony.
Hello.
When a small group of your brothers got together to begin talking about how to honor you, we had a grand vision. And in this vision, we would all make a gesture at the same time for you. And then we would return you to the arms of your family. So, in considering how to honor you as a founder of the New Warrior Training, I wished for something simple, something that would visually convey respect and gratitude. This visual component is made more important because we are not all in one place. There is a globally practiced gesture of respect and gratitude that I still think we may all do together. There are many forms of this gesture, conveying different degrees of respect or deference or humility. These gestures are collectively known as bowing. There are many variations of bowing, from prostration, kneeling, genuflecting, bending at the waist, and inclination of the head. So I have a suggestion. I suggest that we all bend at the waist, but we do not look at the floor. We look forward as if we were watching you pass by us, leaving a stage and returning to the arms of your family. You may do with your hands what you wish. Keep them at your side, put them on your thighs, press your palms together. The most important thing, though, is that you look forward. We are not elevating Rich's status with deference. We are showing a dignified sign of respect and gratitude for our brother. So, if you want to, stand up and adjust your cameras. You can do this sitting, though. I'm going to stand. We will do it 3 times. Once for Tosi, founder and original brother. Bow. Now rise. once for his family who sacrificed themselves so that he could be with us. Bow. Now rise. And once for the families of every man who has ever gone through the New Warrior experience. Bow. Now rise again. Rich, may you be buoyed up by our respect and gratitude all the days of your life. Aho.
Thank you, Curtis. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bill, for your kind words. And I'm a little bit confused here. I thought that we were going to return Rich's medal to him, and are we going to do that?
Yes, Carl Greaser is going to do that piece, Rick.
Okay, and when is that happening?
You can do it right now if you want.
Let's do it right now. So I'll bring Carl Greaser back in and to tell this amazing story about this beautiful medal. Rich, stay on, brother. We're not done bowing to you yet.
This story is pretty simple. At the 25th anniversary in Louisville, Rich came up to my room, completely shocked me, and had held out his medallion and said something like, because of the way we have structured this, you will never get one of these medallions. And simply said, as I remember, I want you to have mine. And I have held it with deep respect in a reliquary created by Dave Bowerly for the last 9 years. And I had hoped to be in Tucson to give it back to Rich. Instead, I've mailed it back with a little letter, and his son Tony is going to do the honors. Thank you, Rich.
Oh, no.
Well, don't touch me. There you go, Dad.
Oh, no.
To honor you, and I'm sure all the men.
Holy Christ. Wow. You're sneaky. Well, you just brought tears to my eyes, Carl. Thank you.
You're
You
welcome.
do deserve it. Whew.
Thank you, Carl.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah. Its medal made it way back where it originally started. And now I'd like to introduce or bring back David Carr, who's going to ask all of the Medal of Honor recipients who wish to say a few words of blessing directly to Rich and his family. Bring David Carr back on, please.
So I'd like to invite any of the past or present Circle of Honor members to speak a blessing for Rich. And I don't know how well this is going to work.
So an orderly way of doing this, if you have control of your cameras and your mute buttons, and let's go slow.
We don't all have control of our cameras.
Ah.
So since I have control of mine, I'll say, Rich, I want to thank you You have always been extraordinarily generous with the thing that is most precious, which is your time. You've given your time to me and to hundreds and hundreds of men. When you were tired, exhausted, you still always had time for us. And I'm extraordinarily grateful because it has touched and changed my life. And I've learned to do that for others from you. So bless you, Rich.
Thank you.
I'll go. This is Lauer. You can hear me, I think, but you can't see me. But you know what I look like anyway, so you don't need to be inflicted with that one more time. Rich, you know, ever since we had our first date as for sushi and Shakespeare back in 1986, I think, I have grown to love you like a brother, like the older brother I never had. It's somehow no accident that your first name is the same as mine. And you've always felt like an older me, and I've always felt like a younger you, learning from you, walking in your footsteps to some degree. And I just want to thank you for being in my life. You know what you mean to me, and how you've touched my life. So God bless you, and God bless your whole family, and Shar and Tony, and I saw David on your picture before. Thank you all for loaning this wonderful man to us for all these many years. Many blessings. May we dance together for many, many more years. And when that comes to an end, may we dance in the next world. Amen.
Thank you, Joe.
I'll go next since I'm ready to go. Rich, my story for you is intensely personal. I had the privilege of living in Milwaukee in the 1990s, so I got to know.
Slow down a little bit.
Thank you. I got to know Ron Herring and Bill Kauth, and of course, Rich Tosi at a very personal level. Rich lived just a couple miles from me. And as we hung out together and staffed together many times, it became abundantly clear to me that Tosi has the fiercest, most loyal and loving heart I have ever known. He was and is completely uncompromising in his dedication to helping men heal. Rich, I have stood by your side and watched in awe, sometimes over your shoulder, for over 30 years as you literally loved men into healing again and again. I recently sent you a letter that outlined this next story, but an example of how you love me, Rich, into healing occurred in late 1991. When my father died unexpectedly, I was completely devastated. And I reached out for support, which you and Rich and Ron and so many others taught me to do. And the very first man who showed up on my doorstep the next morning was you, Rich. And you, along with Henry Thurman and many other men from my I group, showed up and sat on my living room floor holding me for hours. And hours as I sobbed out my grief. Each time I came up for air, you gently suggested, tell us another story about your dad, Rick. And I'd sink again into sobs and sweet memories. I will never forget that very small but immensely powerful healing act. Rich, and by the way, this was the day after Christmas, so your family had to give you up for that time. Rich, I love you, brother. You changed my heart for the better. You changed my life for the better. I love your fierce, open heart that never lets me forget that I am warrior. I'm in. I hope.
I'll go next if it's possible. So I want to share a story with Rich. We invited Rich to come and lead a weekend in France. And Rich didn't understand a word, of course. So we were translating for him. And he was quiet and silent. And, for many years, we invited American and English. And we always got the same feedback. They told us, you are too much in the lover quarter, not enough in the warrior. So we told them, but we are French and it's the way we do. And at the very end, Rich came to me and he felt in tears. And he told me, it's exactly what I have dreamed for an initiation, the mix of the warrior and the lover. And from that day, when people outside France told me we are too much in the lover, I said, no, we are the right place. We still do it that way. So I want to thank you, Rich, for the man that you are, for bringing that work into the world. And I'm sure it will make a difference tomorrow with what's happening now. So I bless you and love you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Christoph. I'm going to go, and just in the interest of the 258 men and women that we have on the program, I want to keep the blessings to less than 60 seconds so that others can share. I'll model it. Rich, 2 pieces. In 1995, I asked you, what does it mean to be a leader in the men's work? And you said, become authentically the man that you were meant to be. And I never forgot that. And that's been the core teaching in the back of my brain about how I'm supposed to show up in the world. Thank you for that. And the second piece is that you have let me into your life and into the life of your family. And you are not just the leader of this organization, the model of all that. You've become one of my dearest and closest friends and mentors and teachers. And I love you and I love your family. I am part of you. Bless you. And thank you.
Thank you, George.
Rich, I have something to thank you for. Twice, you placed huge trust in me. The first time was when you blessed me to do the work necessary to establish the Lodge Keepers Society. You gave me the opportunity with your trust to complete a major piece of my life's work. And the second time was when you trusted me as chair. During those 4 years I served as chair, you began to let go of the reins a little bit. And I saw that letting go as an act of deep trust in the kind of man you saw me to be. So thank you for your trust, because it has enabled me to accomplish, well, my mission is to facilitate greatness in others. And you facilitated that in me. My thanks. I hope.
Hi, Shar. Hi, Tony. Head rub. I've seen your story, Rich, authored by 2 authors, but I think this is better. right? And it's not over. You prompted what's now the 2050 project in the US that I hope to share with the world. And that was you again at the rendezvous, doing your thing, creating magic and integral theory and all kinds of things. So thanks for 70 and then 140 and then thousands of years of magic for the world. Head rub to you.
Rich and Bill both, a lot of people have shared the impact that you've had on their lives personally. And I can say that's been my experience too. You've made a huge difference in my life track and my destiny. But I'd also like to address the reality of what you have brought to the planet. You brought a new vision of how men can be in the world. And you have held that vision. And that is where my gratitude really, really flows from, is looking at what has happened to millions of lives that you have touched and brought into a greater sense of what our responsibility is to the evolution of the consciousness of humanity and the world. And thank you for that very much.
Rich and Shar, both. Our lives have been intertwined a number of times in a number of ways. And I look to you as a father, and you said that you felt that way of me as a son, even though we're only a couple of years apart in age. And you blessed me in a way that I never received from my own father. You were an ally in my coming out and my representing and promoting LGBTQ men in the organization. And we had our discussions, but I never felt that you weren't listening and that you wouldn't allow men to take your baby and help it grow in ways that you perhaps never thought possible. So I thank you and honor you and hope that what I and others have done are worthy of your approval.
Rich.
Thank you.
We've never really had a close personal relationship, and I've never been quite clear why that was. And there's been sadness about that for me. But what I want to bless you for, as well as Kauth, is letting go of the project. Had you not been willing to do that, I think we would have been the cult that everyone accused us of being. And we would have gone through a different type of struggle than that we didn't have to wrest it from you and Bill and in some way destroy you both so we could move on. So I'm deeply grateful for what that has meant to the project. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, I'd like to wrap this up by saying a heartfelt thanks to Shar and Tony and David, because much of what we got from you, Rich, I'm sure came at their expense. I know you love them and we're very devoted to them, but we only have so many hours in a day. And I know that the time you spent on us came out of some of the time with them. So Shar, Tony, David, thank you. Thank you for sharing this man with us. We return him now to you with great and profound gratitude. Bless you for the work you've done in the world, but thank you from our hearts for sharing Rich with us. Bless you.
Aho.
Aho.
I've been asked to wrap this part up and introduce another founder.
Wait, hold on just a second, Rick.
Okay.
Sorry.
No.
Rich Tosi, would you please close this before we move on? Please say some words.
Please say some words. I'm speechless. Yeah. Some of. Thank you. There literally aren't words to express what's going on inside of me. The gratitude and whatever this thing is that we call the Mankind Project, I hope it continues to grow and evolve in the best way to serve men around the planet. And as it's been mentioned, when we started this in 1985, we didn't have the foggiest clue what was going to happen. And but something has happened, and it's because of everybody who's involved. I just want to express my love, and I'm in overwhelm, and how you sneak this medal in is very cool. So thank you.
And now, Rick, thank you for that.
No, that was important to happen. I appreciate it. So to wrap up this honoring piece for Rich, and then I'll introduce our other founder for another beautiful piece. You know, brothers, I think you'll all agree that our organization values head, heart, and soul. We need all three to thrive. And years ago, I heard it stated, and I think there's truth to it, that Ron Herring was the head of MKP. And Bill Kaut, the visionary soul of MKP. And that means Rich Tosi is the heart. And I believe that's still true today. So thank you, Rich, for freely sharing your fiercely loving heart with so many men. Thank you, Shar and Tony and your other son, for sharing this man. And thank you, men and women, for honoring that heart, along with the contribution of this beloved man to Mankind Project and the world. And we get to hear from another founder, our beautiful visionary, Bill Kaut. Bill, take it away. Bring us home.
You're muted, Bill.
Okay, there we go. Wow. Welcome, brothers. Thanks for hanging in here. Another 5 minutes. Man, I love it. It's brothers from all over the world. Thank you, Richard, John, and Boysen, for your brilliant adaptation to this newly unprecedented situation. And boys, in your inspiring talk yesterday, I felt myself cheering a new visionary generation. It seems that this global COVID-19 crisis has people waking up and waking up to what's truly important to them, the value and quality of the relationship. It's what MKP has been teaching for 35 years. Seems like we got a head start on what the world needs. And just maybe, we were made for these times. As Boysen mentioned yesterday, 20 years ago, Robert Moore, co-author of King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, attended our international meeting. And his way of mentoring us was to ask, are you the ones? So let's explore that answer. We do seem to be doing something right. We seem to have spread organically all over the world. Over 10,000 men sit in iGroup every single week. And after 35 years, men still stand in line, waiting to serve on staff, unpaid, even paying their own. So we generate millions of hours of pure service. And John Levitt's brilliant talk yesterday sure laid out our global reach. I'm dazzled by it. Now that should be enough. But where are we going? Where is the world going? How are we being asked to show up now? And maybe we're already doing it. So here's a visionary context part. I read a lot. My current favorite author is Dr. Margaret Wheatley. And she's known mostly for books on leadership. And here's what she says. Sane leadership is the unshakable faith in people's capacity to be generous, creative, and kind. Sounds a lot like MKP. Now, in her newest book called Who Do We Choose to Be? She talks about the history of empires over the last 2,000 years, the Byzantine, Roman, Asian. It seems that empires all go through 6 stages, from development through disintegration and collapse. 6 exact stages. And the American empire appears to be well into the 6th stage, which may be why our world may seem so insane. Dr. Meg Wheatley also suggests that we build islands of sanity. And she says over and over in her book, whatever the problem, the answer is local community. So we, MKP, already have at least 1,000 of these small, safe, local islands of sanity where we can live from our hearts. We call them iGroups. So there's extensive research that tells us that we humans are born to be good, kind, compassionate creatures, ready to empathize and bond with each other. It's who we are as humans. It's not the exception to the rule. It's our natural state of being. Selfishness is a culturally conditioned pathology. I'll say that again, selfishness is a culturally conditioned pathology. Truth is, we're hardwired to give, to live the giveaway. Early initiations marked the passage of boys into selflessness at the moment when they embodied service to the tribe. Curtis Mitchell would suggest that as we evolve and mature and become more sovereign, we become more generous. A will to give is our natural instinct. And MKP has been helping men reclaim their natural state of compassion and generosity since the very beginning. Now we're doing it in over 1,000 iGroups with 10,000 men bonding and learning to be of service. Men in groups do their warrior battle within until their lives are working, until they feel fulfilled to overflowing. And that's the moment of soul initiation, when they truly become men of service. Now, every year we see so many men around the world receive the Ron Herring Mission Award for beautiful service to others. So now let's explore how our MKP compassion and kindness serves what John Levitt so beautifully calls the human family, worldwide and local. I've seen so many MKP men who have healed their broken attachment wounds so that they become able to risk their hearts to find true intimacy with women. Brothers, one man at a time, we're healing a 5,000-year-old wound between men and women and those of gender fluidity. The world has been waiting a damn long time for this healing. And MKP is a force to bring it forward. When a new MKP region opens, we leap into service. Men come from everywhere. I especially remember my joy when South Africa was opening, and men from all around the world flew there, at their own expense, of course, to help them get established there. On a more personal level, I've seen and felt the compassion that our MKP brothers have for each other. Two of my friends, John Fish from Wisconsin and Ken Becker here in Oregon, at different times were diagnosed with inoperable cancer. The men in their group were there for them constantly and gathered near the house as they died. Both their widows shared with me how deeply this touched them and how much it meant to their husbands. In another situation, I heard about Charlie's young son died suddenly, and his MKP brothers literally camped in his driveway for over a week so they would be right there when he needed them. We know how to do this. We know how to be there for each other. We know what the world needs, and we know how to share it. For 35 years, we've been sending truly great men into the world. They know their shadows. They know that their power is in their vulnerability. They know what to do. We are the Mankind Project. Kindness and courage lives in us. Finally, let me honor one of the kindest men I've ever known. Back in Milwaukee, in the late 80s when we were starting, there were maybe a couple hundred men. And we all knew each other. And as Bronick has already shared, whenever a man was hurting or needing help, there was one guy that dropped everything to go to be with that hurting man. It was Rich Tosi. It was our Rich Tosi. He was always there for his brothers, always. Rich Tosi lives and models what it means to be a new warrior. Rich Tosi put the kind in the Mankind Project. Thank you.
Bill Kauth, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for being here. This concludes the program for today in this room. I'd like to invite Richard Torres to come into the space and announce the Open Connection space, which will close the day. Richard, are you here, brother?
Thanks, Poison. Thanks, Rich. Thanks, Bill. Thanks to all the men who presented today. Thanks for all the men who accepted their medals. It's because of you men that I get these gifts. We're going to go to the connection room and we're going to meet for a short while. We will probably not meet for a whole hour, but Urs and Elliot are going to kick us off. I invite everybody to go to the other connection room, and that number is 939-640-138. It should be in your chat window. You can also get there directly by going to MKP Connect and looking on your profile page. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you over in the connection room. We're grateful that you took the time to be with us for these 2 days celebrating the 35th anniversary of the Mankind Project. Thanks to Bill Kauth, Rich Tosi, Ron Herring. Thanks to all the men and women who have made this what it is. And we will see you soon.